My husband and I scratched off a $5 million lottery ticket at a lottery shop. Before we even had time to celebrate, the rosary I had worn since childhood suddenly snapped, a single bead cracking clean off the chain. Without another word, I grabbed him and tried to buy tickets that very night to flee back to the southwestern mountains. The lottery shop owner stared at me in shock. My husband clung to the metal shutter and roared, "Have you lost your mind?" But I gripped that broken wooden bead tightly. "We leave now." My husband flung my hand away, his eyes bloodshot. "I'm claiming this prize today. If you dare run, we're getting divorced." I nodded without hesitation. "Fine, the $5 million, plus the used car at home, all go to you. I'll leave with nothing. But tonight, I have to leave this city." Daniel Lawson stared at me, the $5 million scratch-off ticket crumpled in his fist. Even the lottery shop owner froze, cigarette ash falling onto his pants without him noticing. "Maya Carter, are you out of your mind?" Daniel slammed his fist against the glass counter so hard that a row of cheap figurines toppled over. "That's $5 million. Even after taxes, it's still $4 million. He jabbed a finger in my face, spit nearly spraying me. "And now you're telling me you want to go back to that dirt-poor mountain hole in the middle of nowhere? You just can't stand seeing me do well, can you?" I could not hear his yelling anymore. The broken bead in my palm was still warm. It came from the rosary my grandmother had carved from a tree struck by lightning, deep in the mountains. I had worn it for 24 years. Fire could not burn it, water could not rot it, and a blade had never left a mark on it. But the instant we scratched open the winning number, it had cracked against my chest with a sharp, piercing sound. The topmost bead, the one nearest the small wooden cross, had snapped clean off the chain. The break was smooth, as if cut by an invisible blade. "The car keys are on the coffee table at home. The savings account password is your birthday. You can have all of it. I don't want anything." I gritted my teeth, shoved aside the arm he used to block me, turned, and ran. Outside, the sky was terrifyingly dark, heavy clouds pressing down over the city. Daniel caught up in a few strides and grabbed the back of my collar. The force yanked me backward, and I fell hard on the steps outside the lottery shop. My knees struck the concrete with a dull thud. Before the pain even reached me, Daniel had already crouched down and clamped his hands around my shoulders. "What are you trying to do?" His voice was low and vicious. "Are you trying to run off to find that first love of yours? Let me tell you, Maya Carter, I scratched that ticket. You're not taking a single cent." His eyes were full of suspicion and calculation. $5 million had stripped away his disguise completely. I looked coldly at the man I had shared a bed with for 3 years. There was no time. I wrenched free of his hands and rushed to the curb. A cab with its vacant sign lit was waiting at the light. I pulled open the door and climbed into the back seat. Then I took out the $20,000 in cash I had just withdrawn and threw it onto the passenger seat. "Out of the city! Get on the highway! Drive southwest!" I shouted at the driver. "Floor it! All that money is yours." The driver was a balding, middle-aged man. He jumped in fright and instinctively looked as if he wanted to throw me out, but when his eyes flicked to the stack of cash, he swallowed. Daniel had already reached the window and was pounding on the glass. "Open the door! You crazy woman! Get out! Sir, drive!" I stared at the driver with a bloodless face. "He beats me. I'm running for my life." The driver clenched his teeth and yanked the wheel. The cab shot forward with a screech of tires. In the rearview mirror, Daniel grew smaller and smaller. I collapsed against the back seat, cold sweat soaking through my clothes. I opened my right hand. From the grain of the broken bead, a thread of dark red liquid seeped out. It was blood. The speedometer pushed past 80, and the scenery outside blurred into streaks. I stared at the bleeding bead of wood, my whole body cold. Before my grandmother died, her withered fingers had gripped my wrist as she rasped, "Maya, this rosary keeps the harm away. A broken bead is a warning. If one ever cracks off, no matter what you're doing, don't look back. Run as far as you can." I had always thought it was just mountain superstition, until today, when the threat of death came down around me with terrifying clarity. My phone kept vibrating in my bag, the frantic buzz making my heart pound. The screen lit up with message after message. I tapped the top one. It was a video Daniel had posted in the family group chat. The video came from the lottery shop's security camera. In it, I looked frantic as I shoved him away, hair disheveled, scrambling into a cab. He had added a long caption, "Everyone, judge this for yourselves. I just scratched off $5 million, and Maya said a bead breaking off her stupid wooden rosary was a bad omen. She wants to divorce me and leave with nothing." She took a cab and ran off overnight, abandoning even our home. I suspect she was mentally triggered, or maybe she has someone outside and is staging this to force me into a divorce and split the money. The group chat exploded. His older sister wrote, "I always said women from the mountains can't be trusted. The second big money shows up, her true colors come out." His uncle wrote, "Call the police. Don't let her clean out the savings account." Then my mother-in-law, Linda Lawson, sent a voice message. The moment I tapped it, her shrill scolding stabbed into my ears. "Maya, you jinx. My son finally got lucky, and now you're acting crazy? Get back here right now. If you dare touch a single cent of that $5 million, I'll fight you to the death." Expressionless, I locked the screen. They only cared about money. Even though I had said I would leave with nothing, they still believed I was plotting for that windfall. Ahead was a tunnel. The car plunged into darkness. I messaged several friends in the city, my fingers shaking badly. "Listen to me. No matter what you're doing, leave this city immediately. Do not stay here." The message had barely gone out before a red exclamation mark appeared. I had been kicked out of the group chat. A private message from one of my friends came right after. "Maya, you're overdoing it. Daniel already posted the surveillance video on his feed. If you want to keep the prize money for yourself, just say so. Who are you trying to scare with this supernatural act? Disgusting." I gave a bitter smile and turned off my phone. No one believed me. In everyone's eyes, I was a money-hungry lunatic who had snapped. The cab exited the tunnel. A road sign ahead showed that the state line was still 90 miles away. If I could make it past the toll plaza, I could leave this place. "Miss, your husband called the police." The driver driver suddenly spoke, his voice tense. He pointed at the ride-hailing app on the console. A platform alert had popped up, saying the vehicle was being tracked by family members and police, and the driver was required to stop nearby. Don't stop! I shot upright and threw the remaining jewelry in my bag toward him. I didn't break the law, and I didn't take a cent from him. Sir, if you get me across the state line, all of this is yours. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror, suspicion creeping into his eyes. The car slowed noticeably. It's not about money, he muttered as he turned on the right signal. They said you have mental problems and violent tendencies. I've got old folks and kids at home. I can't take that kind of risk. The car gradually slid toward the service area ahead. I looked out the window in despair. 3 in the morning. The cab had just stopped in the service area when 2 black SUVs barreled in from the ramp. The shriek of brakes tore through the night. The doors flew open. Daniel jumped out with 4 men and surrounded the cab. The driver went pale with fear and scrambled to unlock the doors. Maya, you can really run, can't you? Daniel yanked open the rear door, cold wind pouring in with his roar. Get out! He reached in to grab my hair. I had been ready for him. I shrank to the other side and kicked him hard in the wrist. Get away from me! I told you I don't want anything. Why won't you let me go? Let you go? Daniel sneered, half his body leaning into the car. You're out here spreading rumors that something's going to happen in the city. The police came to me saying you're spreading panic. You don't care about shame, but I do. His friends closed in. One of them pulled out black nylon zip ties. Sis, stop making trouble. Daniel just won big. This is supposed to be a happy thing. Maybe you've been under too much pressure and started seeing things. Come back with us and see a doctor. They called me sis, but their hands showed no mercy. 2 men circled to the other side, forced the door open, clamped my arms from both sides, and dragged me out. My palms scraped against the asphalt, pain drilling into me. Several truck drivers and passers-by in the service area heard the commotion and gathered around. What's going on? Hitting a woman in the middle of the night? Daniel immediately put on a pained expression. Sir, sorry you have to see this. This is my wife. She's been under too much stress lately and has severe delusions. We won the lottery today, and it triggered her. She insists a bead breaking off the rosary around her neck is some kind of sign from God, and says our city is about to be punished. She ran away from home. He pointed at my messy hair. Look at her. How could I not take her back for treatment? The crowd began whispering. So she's mentally ill. Winning the lottery drove her crazy? Poor guy. What bad luck to have a wife like that. Public opinion turned instantly toward Daniel. The cab driver took the chance to stuff the money and jewelry into his pocket and sped away. I was pinned against a car door by 2 strong men, unable to move. The rosary pressed against my skin, burning so hot I almost fainted. Let go of me. You will regret this. I looked at the cold faces around me and screamed until my throat tore. There is really something wrong with that city. If you go back now, you're going to your deaths. Smack! Daniel slapped me across the face. My ears rang. Blood filled the corner of my mouth. Cover her mouth. Put her in the car. He had completely lost patience. His face twisted as he ordered his friends. Just as the zip tie was about to loop around my wrist, I lowered my head and bit hard into the hand of the man gripping my left arm. Ah! He screamed and let go. I used the opening to break free. From my coat pocket, I pulled out an eyebrow razor and pressed it directly against the artery in my neck. The blade cut the skin and beads of blood rolled down. If anyone takes one more step, I stared straight at Daniel. I'll die right here in front of you. Everyone went silent. Time dragged by, second after second. The east gradually turned pale. Morning light broke through the clouds and spilled across the cold concrete of the service area. Dawn had come. Far away on the horizon, the outline of the city I had fled shimmered faintly in the morning fog. There were no towering flames, no deafening explosions. Everything was quiet and peaceful. A few trucks began appearing on the highway. Nothing had happened. The onlookers started leaving. Before they left, the way they looked at me had fully turned into the way people look at a madwoman. All right, young lady, it's daylight now, and nothing happened. Put the blade down and go home with your husband. The cleaning lady shook her head and walked away. The hand holding the eyebrow razor began to tremble. Could I really have been wrong? Had I been too sensitive, turning a cracked bead into a disaster? Daniel caught the wavering in my eyes. He waved for his friends to step back, then slowed his steps and approached me. At that critical moment, Daniel's phone suddenly rang in his pocket. He pulled it out irritably, glanced at the caller ID, then answered on speaker. It was his buddy Big Dave, who ran a pool hall back in the city. The second the call connected, Big Dave's scream rang through the entire service area. Daniel, don't come back. Don't fucking come back. Daniel froze, phone held stiffly in midair.
The service area went dead silent. Even the trucks rolling in from the highway seemed to hesitate, like the world itself had leaned in to listen. Daniel's expression tightened. Dave, what are you talking about? On the speaker, Big Dave's breathing was ragged, like he had been running. Then came the words, broken and shaking. It started. My grip on the razor didn't loosen. If anything, it pressed a little closer to my skin. Daniel's eyes flicked toward me for a split second, anger, suspicion, and something almost like fear colliding in them. Started what? He snapped. A pause. Then Big Dave screamed again. The city, Daniel, it's gone wrong. People are collapsing. Cars are crashing with no drivers. The hospital's overflowing in under an hour. Nobody knows what's happening. My blood went cold. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Just that deep, sinking dread I had been carrying since the bead cracked. Daniel let out a sharp laugh. Too loud. Too fast. You expect me to believe that? Over a scratch-off ticket and some superstition? But his voice wasn't steady anymore. Because behind Big Dave's panic, there was something else bleeding through the phone. Sirens. Constant. Layered. Getting closer. Then another voice cut in the background, someone else shouting. It's not a hoax. Look at the sky. The line cut out with a harsh, static burst. Dead silence returned. Daniel slowly lowered the phone. For the first time since I'd known him, he didn't look like he was in control of anything. I swallowed, throat burning where the blade touched my skin. It's not just the city, I said quietly. My voice came out rough. It never was just the city. Daniel's gaze snapped back to me. What did you do? He whispered. I almost laughed at that. Almost. I didn't do anything, I said. I ran. Behind us, someone in the crowd started backing away. Then another. A truck driver muttered something under his breath, crossing himself, eyes fixed on the horizon. The sky above the city line had begun to change. Not dramatically. Not like fire or storm. Worse. Like something was wrong with distance itself. The far skyline shimmered, bending slightly, as if the air was folding in on itself. Daniel's friends noticed too now. One of them took a step back. Bro, what is that? No one answered. Then Daniel suddenly moved.
Not toward me. Toward his SUV.
Get in the cars, he barked. We're going back. This is some kind of media stunt or... His voice broke off mid-sentence. Because from the direction of the city, a sound rolled out across the highway. Not loud at first.
Low. Deep.
Like a billion objects shifting at once. Every car alarm in the service area screamed simultaneously. And then, the first wave hit the horizon. Not fire. Not explosion. Just a collapsing line of light, like reality itself had been turned off in a strip across the world. People started screaming. Someone dropped to their knees. Daniel stood frozen beside the SUV, staring straight ahead. My fingers loosened slightly on the razor. The bead against my chest pulsed once, hot enough to burn through cloth. And in that moment I finally understood the warning my grandmother had meant. A broken bead wasn't telling me to run from danger. It was telling me danger had already been set loose. Daniel turned slowly back toward me, his face pale. What did your family protect you from? He asked, barely audible. And far behind him, the sky over the city began to darken, like ink spreading through water. The ink-black stain did not stay over the city.
It moved.
It spread with impossible precision, swallowing buildings block by block without a sound. The service area television mounted above the convenience store suddenly switched from advertisements to an emergency broadcast. The smiling host had vanished. A woman in a government uniform filled the screen. Her hair was disheveled. Her hands were shaking. If you are within 100 miles of West Haven City, evacuate immediately. Do not travel toward the city under any circumstances. The broadcast glitched. For less than a second another image flashed over hers. A street. People standing perfectly still.
Hundreds of them.
Every head tilted toward the sky at exactly the same angle. Then the image vanished. The anchor returned. Repeat. Do not approach the city. The screen went black. Panic erupted. Drivers abandoned gas pumps. Families threw children into their cars. Semis jackknifed as truckers fought to turn around. Someone shouted that every highway heading into the city had already been closed. Daniel's mother called. He answered automatically. Mom. Only sobbing answered him. Then Linda's terrified voice burst through. Daniel. She wasn't screaming anymore. She sounded broken. The neighbors? What neighbors? They're standing outside. What? They've been standing there for 20 minutes. Daniel frowned. Mom, lock the doors. They're all facing our house. A long silence. Then she whispered. They aren't blinking. The line crackled. A heavy knock echoed through the speaker. One knock. Another. Another. Slow. Linda began crying. They know we're inside. Daniel yelled. Mom. Don't open the... The phone disconnected. His face drained of every trace of color. His sister Wanda called next. The moment he answered, only static poured through. Then screaming. Not hers. Dozens. Hundreds. The call ended by itself. His hands began trembling so violently, he nearly dropped the phone. Around us, everyone else's phones started ringing too. One after another. Like dominoes. Cries filled the service station. My husband isn't answering. My son's school. The hospital's gone offline. The police just texted everyone to leave. Another emergency alert flashed across every screen. National emergency. Shelter if you are outside the affected zone. Do not attempt rescue operations. Do not respond to familiar voices if their location cannot be verified. People stared at the final sentence. A woman whispered. What does that even mean? No one had an answer. Except my grandmother's stories. When I was little she would never answer if someone called her name after sunset unless she could see their face. She used to say, if something wants you badly enough, it learns your voice first. At the time I had laughed. Now I couldn't. The broken bead suddenly grew so hot that I cried out. Smoke curled from beneath my shirt. I tore the rosary free. The remaining beads had changed. Fine cracks spread through every single one. Not one. All of them. No. I whispered. No. If one broken bead meant run, what did an entire rosary breaking mean? Before I could think further. Crack. Another bead split. Then another. Then another. Tiny snapping sounds echoed in my hands. One by one. Like a countdown. An old memory slammed into me. I was 8 years old. Grandmother had been carving the rosary by candlelight. I had asked why it needed so many beads. She smiled sadly. Each one buys a little more time. I had laughed. Time for what? She looked toward the dark mountains. For the gate to stay shut. My blood froze. The gate. Not protection. Containment. The rosary had never been protecting me. It had been measuring something. And it had just started running out. The last intact bead cracked in half. The wooden cross fell into my palm. For the first time in 24 years. The rosary was dead. The wind stopped. Every sound vanished. Even the cries around us disappeared. The entire service area became unnaturally still. Then, someone laughed. A little girl. Sweet. Gentle. Completely out of place. Everyone turned. Near the edge of the parking lot stood a little girl in a yellow raincoat. She couldn't have been older than 7. She smiled brightly. Except, there wasn't a single child anywhere moments earlier. She stood alone, barefoot, looking directly at me. Then she spoke. Maya. I had never seen her before. My stomach dropped. She smiled wider. Grandmother said you'd come. Every hair on my body stood on end, because my grandmother had been dead for 12 years. The little girl took another small step forward. She tilted her head, smiling with the innocent curiosity of a child. You took much longer than Grandma expected. My voice came out as little more than a whisper. Who are you? She giggled. You already know. I don't. You do. She raised one tiny hand. In her palm rested a wooden bead. Perfectly smooth. Unbroken. It matched my grandmother's rosary exactly. Every drop of blood drained from my face. That bead. It had been the one that snapped off in the lottery shop. I had watched it crack. I had watched it bleed. It should have been in my pocket. Slowly, my shaking hand reached into my coat. Empty. The bead was gone. The girl rolled it across her fingers. You dropped this. I never. You did.
She smiled again.
But I picked it up. Daniel stared between us. Maya. His voice cracked. Who the hell is she? I don't know. For the first time since this nightmare began, that answer was completely true. The girl looked disappointed. You really forgot. Then she looked past me, past all of us, toward the mountains in the southwest. The old ones are all gone now. A freezing wind swept across the service area. The last keeper died. My heartbeat stumbled. Keeper. Grandmother. She had never called herself that. She always said she was only an old woman who liked carving wood. The little girl sighed. She lied because she wanted you to have a normal life. The ground trembled, just enough to rattle every parked vehicle. Several people screamed. Far behind us, the black stain on the horizon advanced another few miles. It wasn't swallowing buildings anymore. It was swallowing daylight. The sun itself seemed dimmer. The girl looked back at me. When your grandmother died, the seal weakened. When your mother died, it weakened again. When you scratched the winning ticket, she held up the bead. The final lock broke. Daniel barked a nervous laugh. This is insane.
No.
The girl turned toward him. You were simply unlucky. What does that mean? You chose the wrong piece of paper. Daniel frowned. It was a lottery ticket. No, it was a key. Silence. She tossed the bead lightly into the air before catching it again. For thousands of years, one ticket is always printed. It always wins. It always finds someone. It isn't giving money. It's choosing. Daniel's breathing became uneven. Choosing what? The girl's smile disappeared. A witness. The word settled over everyone like ice. A witness to the opening. A truck driver shouted angrily. Enough with this. He climbed into his rig. I'm getting out of here. He slammed the door. The engine roared to life. He floored the accelerator toward the interstate. Everyone watched. For nearly half a mile, nothing happened. Some people visibly relaxed. See, one of Daniel's friends laughed shakily. He got away. The truck reached the highway overpass. Then, it stopped. Not gradually. Instantly. As though someone had paused reality. The 18-wheeler froze in the middle of the road. Engine still running. Wheels still spinning. But the truck itself didn't move another inch. The driver climbed out. He looked confused. He walked around the front bumper. Touched the air. His hand stopped. He pushed harder. Nothing. It looked as though an invisible wall stood across the highway. Other cars reached the same point. Each one stopped dead. People climbed out. Pounded on nothing. Cried. Screamed. The road out had vanished. The little girl spoke quietly. You waited too long. One by one. Every phone in the service area vibrated. A new emergency alert. No alarm tone. Just words. Federal Emergency Directive. All exit routes from quarantine zone have failed. Do not attempt to cross invisible barriers. Do not approach individuals who have been standing motionless for long periods. If you hear someone you love calling your name, verify their face before responding. Below the message was something that made every person there go pale. The quarantine map. The red zone wasn't just the city anymore. It had expanded. The blinking, marking the service area, was now inside it. Someone whispered, we're trapped. The little girl looked at me one last time. No. She slipped the wooden bead into my hand and closed my fingers around it. Not everyone. Before I could ask another question, she was gone, as though she had never been there at all, and clutched tightly in my fist. The single wooden bead was warm again. This time it was no longer bleeding. It was beating, like a tiny living heart. The bead thumped against my palm. Once. Twice. Then it went still. I opened my hand. A single line had appeared on the wood. Go to Black Pine Mountain. Burned into the grain. I didn't hesitate. We're leaving. Daniel grabbed my arm. You know what this means, don't you? Yes. Then tell me. I ripped free. My grandmother wasn't protecting me. I looked him straight in the eyes. She was protecting everyone else. The words hit him harder than any slap. What? My family were monks. They were wardens. Another tremor shook the ground. This one was stronger. Cracks raced across the parking lot. A fuel pump toppled over. People screamed and scattered. One of Daniel's friends pointed toward the highway. They're coming. Everyone turned. Hundreds of figures were walking down the interstate. Not running. Walking. Men. Women. Children. They moved shoulder to shoulder in perfect silence. Every one of them had their head tilted upward. Every one of them wore the same blank smile. One woman carried a crying baby. The baby never moved. It only cried. A man beside me shouted. Thank God. Survivors. He sprinted toward them. Hey, over here. I yelled. Stop. He ignored me. When he was 20 feet away, the crowd stopped walking. Every smiling face turned toward him at the exact same moment. The man froze. What? One little boy stepped out of the crowd. He looked about 6.
Daddy.
The man burst into tears. Tyler. He ran forward. Several people sighed with relief. It's his son. The little boy smiled. Daddy. The man dropped to his knees and hugged him. The instant he did,
Crack.
the sound echoed like a tree splitting. The father's spine bent backward. Farther. Farther. Until it snapped in half. His scream lasted less than a second. The crowd pulled him inside. Not roughly.
Gently.
Like welcoming family home. When they stepped apart again, he was standing,
Smiling.
his head tilted toward the sky, exactly like the rest. Then all of them started walking again, toward us. Panic exploded. People abandoned cars. Some ran into the woods. Others locked themselves inside the convenience store. Daniel stumbled backward. Oh my God. One of his friends tried to start the SUV. The engine turned over. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Every vehicle in the parking lot died at once. The little electronic displays all went black. The emergency lights failed. Even the gas station sign went dark. Only the sunrise remained. Then a deafening boom rolled across the valley. Everyone looked up. A mountain in the distance split open. Not cracked. Opened. Like two doors being pulled apart. Inside wasn't rock. It was darkness. Something enormous moved deep within it. Too large to make out. Too large to understand. The bead in my hand burned. A memory surfaced. Grandmother's final words. If the mountain ever opens, don't try to fight what's coming. Close the gate. I finally understood. There had always been a gate. It wasn't under the city. It was inside Black Pine Mountain. The city had only been the lock. The winning ticket had been the key. Daniel stared at me. You knew. I knew something was wrong. You let me scratch that ticket. I didn't know it was the ticket. He laughed hysterically. So $5 million. Ended the world?
No.
I looked toward the opening mountain. Someone designed it that way. Before he could answer, a convoy of military trucks roared into the service area from the opposite direction. Soldiers poured out in full combat gear. Everyone on the ground. The commander raised a loudspeaker. Do not make contact with anyone approaching on foot. Machine guns swung toward the silent crowd. One soldier whispered nervously. Sir, they're civilians. The commander never lowered his rifle. They were. He gave the order. Fire. The parking lot erupted with gunfire. The barrage lasted nearly 30 seconds. Hundreds of rounds tore into the advancing crowd. Bodies fell. Arms and legs were ripped apart. When the firing stopped, smoke drifted across the highway. The commander raised a fist. Cease fire. Silence. Then one by one the bodies stood back up. Bullet holes remained. Shirts were soaked in blood. A man's jaw hung by a strip of skin. A little girl's chest was shredded. None of them seemed to notice. They simply resumed walking. A young soldier stared in horror. Sir? The commander's face hardened. Fall back. Too late. The front row reached the barricade. A smiling elderly woman gently took hold of a soldier's rifle. She didn't pull. The steel barrel bent like warm plastic. The soldier stumbled backward. Another figure reached him. A teenage boy. He smiled politely. May I? The soldier screamed and fired point blank into the boy's face. The bullets blew away half his skull. The boy didn't even blink. He placed a hand on the soldier's shoulder. The soldier's scream cut off instantly. His body stiffened. His eyes rolled upward. When he turned back around, he was smiling. His rifle dropped from his hands. He walked into the crowd without another word. Don't let them touch you, the commander shouted. The line collapsed. Soldiers fired while retreating. Others abandoned their weapons and ran. Some never made it 10 feet before a smiling hand landed on an arm or shoulder. Every person who was touched stopped fighting. Within seconds they joined the march. No blood. No struggle. Just another smiling face. Daniel grabbed my sleeve. They're infecting people.
No.
I couldn't take my eyes off them. They're replacing them.
What?
They're still wearing the same bodies. A Humvee accelerated straight toward the crowd. The driver floored it. The armored vehicle smashed into the first rank. People flew through the air. The Humvee kept going. For about 50 yards. Then every dashboard light flashed red. The engine died. The vehicle coasted to a stop. The driver climbed out with his pistol. He looked around wildly. The crowd surrounded him. He fired until the slide locked back.
Click, click, click.
An elderly man stepped forward. You've done enough. The driver collapsed to his knees. Dad. The old man had died years ago. Even from where I stood, I recognized the military tattoos on the driver's neck. He was crying. I buried you. The old man opened his arms. My son. The commander shouted through his loudspeaker. Don't listen. He's dead. The driver never heard him. He ran forward. His father embraced him. For one heartbeat, they looked like any family reunited. Then both of them turned together. Both smiling. Both staring at us. The commander lowered the loudspeaker. He knew. Bullets couldn't stop them. Armor couldn't stop them. Even death wasn't stopping them.
He looked at me.
You. I met his eyes. You know something. My grandmother did. Then tell me. I held up the single wooden bead. It says to go to Black Pine Mount. The commander didn't laugh. He immediately pointed to an armored personnel carrier. Get in. Daniel blinked. You're just going to believe her? The commander answered without looking at him. My unit was sent to investigate the city 6 hours ago.
His jaw tightened.
I deployed 118 soldiers. He looked behind him. Only 14 remained. If she's lying. He chambered a fresh round into his pistol. We're dead anyway. The rear ramp of the armored carrier slammed shut. The engine roared to life. Outside, the smiling crowd watched in complete silence. None of them tried to stop us. That frightened me more than if they had attacked, because it meant they wanted us to reach the mountain. The armored carrier tore off the highway. The commander grabbed the radio. Falcon actual to command. We're diverting to Black Pine Mountain. Only static answered. Then a voice. Not command. His wife's. Michael. The commander froze. Every soldier in the carrier looked at him. A young corporal whispered, "Sir, your wife died last year." The radio crackled again. "Michael, I'm cold." His hand tightened around the microphone. "Don't answer," I said.
He looked at me.
"That's not her." The radio continued. "You promised you'd never leave me alone." One of the older soldiers reached for the volume knob. The commander slapped his hand away and ripped the radio out of its mount. He threw it onto the road through the rear hatch. No one spoke after that. 10 minutes later we reached the foothills. The road ended. Ahead stood Black Pine Mountain. It wasn't split open anymore. It had always been open. We just hadn't been able to see it before. A canyon nearly a mile wide cut straight through the mountain. Ancient stone stairs descended into darkness.
Hundreds of them.
At the entrance stood 2 stone pillars. Both were covered in faded carvings. I stepped out first. The bead in my hand became almost too hot to hold. The commander joined me. "What does it say?" I walked to the nearest pillar. The carvings weren't random. They were names. Thousands of names. Each one had a year beside it. The final line had no name. Only empty space. Below it, a single sentence. One warden. One key. One choice. Daniel read it over my shoulder. "What does that mean?" Before I could answer, another voice echoed from the canyon. "I was wondering when you'd arrive." An old man climbed the stairs. His white robe was stained with dirt. His beard reached his waist. But his eyes, they were clear.
Alive.
He looked directly at me. "Maya Carter. You knew my grandmother." "I buried her." "You know what's happening?" "Yes." "Then stop it." He shook his head. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I already failed." He pointed toward the canyon. The gate opened. "Close it again." "It doesn't work that way." Daniel stepped forward impatiently. "Enough riddles." "What is the gate?" The old man answered without hesitation. "A prison." "For what?" "The things that learned how to wear us." Silence. He continued. "They don't possess people. They copy them. They learn every memory, every habit, every voice. Then they kill the original." Daniel's face went white. "The people back there, they're already dead." The old man nodded. "The copies are simply walking home." One soldier vomited. Another sat down hard on a rock, unable to process it. I held up the wooden bead. "This brought me here." The old man smiled sadly. "Of course it did." He reached into his robe, then opened his hand. 5 wooden beads rested in his palm. Each one was stained dark red. "Your grandmother left these with me." My heart pounded. "She said if you arrived." His expression hardened. "You must never let Daniel Lawson reach the bottom of the mountain." Every eye turned toward Daniel. Daniel stared in disbelief. "What?" The old man didn't even look at him. "He already has the key." Daniel laughed nervously. "What key?" "The winning lottery ticket." Everyone went silent. The old man finally met Daniel's eyes. "That wasn't the prize. It was your invitation." Daniel slowly reached into his jacket. With shaking fingers, he pulled out the crumpled $5 million scratch-off ticket. The silver coating was gone. So were the numbers. Across the entire ticket, new words had appeared. "Welcome home. Keeper of the open gate." Daniel dropped the ticket. It fluttered onto the stone steps. No one moved to pick it up.
"I don't want it," Daniel said.
His voice shook. "I never wanted any of this." The old man looked at him. "It doesn't matter." "What do you mean it doesn't matter?" "You scratched it." "I didn't know." "Neither did the last one." Daniel frowned. "The last one?" The old man pointed to the wall of names. I followed his finger. Near the bottom was a fresh carving. Elias Ward, 1997. "He won the lottery," the old man said. He opened the gate. "We killed him before he reached these stairs." Daniel's eyes widened. "Killed him?" "We had no choice." The commander stepped between them. "Explain." The old man took a slow breath. "The ticket marks one person." "For what?" "As a door." Silence. "The gate doesn't stay open by itself. It needs a living anchor." Daniel stumbled backward. "No, it chose you. I can just burn it." He pulled out a lighter. The old man didn't stop him. Daniel set the ticket on fire. The paper curled, blackened, turned to ash. When the wind blew the ashes away, the ticket was back in his hand. Perfect. Untouched. Daniel screamed and threw it again. It landed at his feet. Again. Again. No matter how far he tossed it, the ticket returned. One soldier whispered, "It's bonded to him." The old man nodded. "Until the anchor dies." Daniel looked at him desperately. "So kill me." Nobody answered. He turned to the commander. "Shoot me." The commander's jaw clenched. "I can't execute an innocent man. If you don't, everyone dies." The old man finally spoke. "It isn't that simple." Daniel stared at him. "What now?" "The anchor must die inside the gate." My stomach dropped.
"Why?"
"Because the gate will only close if it takes back what it claimed." Daniel grabbed the old man's robe. "So we walk in, I die, and it's over?"
"No."
The old man's eyes filled with pity. "It won't let you walk in." A deep rumble echoed from below. Something was climbing the stairs.
Slowly, deliberately.
The sound of heavy footsteps rolled through the canyon.
Boom, boom, boom.
The soldiers aimed their rifles downward. Nothing appeared. Only darkness. Then a hand gripped the edge of the stone staircase.
Human. Pale.
Another hand followed. A man climbed into view. He wore ordinary clothes. His face was Daniel's. Not similar. Identical. The copy smiled. I've been waiting. Daniel staggered back. What? The thing laughed softly. You really thought you won money? It looked around at all of us. I won. Its eyes settled on me. And you ran exactly where I wanted. The old man's face hardened. I knew it. The copy spread its arms. You couldn't stop her.
No.
You couldn't stop him.
No.
And now, it smiled wider. You've brought the last blood of the wardens directly to the gate. The bead in my hand became so hot it scorched my skin. The old man shouted. Maya. I looked at him. Do not let it touch you. The fake Daniel took one more step. Then another. The real Daniel stared at his own face, unable to move. The copy smiled at him almost affectionately.
Come.
It held out its hand. Let's go home together. The fake Daniel waited. It didn't rush. It knew fear could do half the work. The real Daniel stared at his own face, trembling. I don't want this, he whispered. I know, the copy replied with his own voice. None of them ever do. The old man suddenly grabbed my wrist and shoved the last 5 bloodstained beads into my hand. They're not charms. They're locks. Before I could ask what he meant, he ran. Straight at the copy. The creature smiled. You've done this before. I have. The old man wrapped both arms around it. Now, Maya. I understood. The bead in my hand wasn't pointing toward the gate anymore. It was pointing at the ticket. I lunged at Daniel, ripped the lottery ticket from his frozen fingers, and slapped the wooden bead against it. The paper burst into black flames. For the first time, the copy's smile disappeared.
No.
The old man roared. Throw it into the gate. I sprinted down the stone stairs. Behind me came screams, gunfire, and the sound of men fighting something that didn't bleed. Halfway down, hands burst from the darkness in the walls, clawing for me. Faces I recognized formed in the stone. My mother. My grandmother.
Friends.
They all called my name. I never looked at them. Grandmother's warning echoed in my mind. Don't answer familiar voices unless you can see their faces. I kept running. At the bottom of the canyon stood a stone archway. There was nothing inside it. Only absolute darkness. The ticket burned hotter and hotter until it nearly fused to my hand. Behind me the fake Daniel screamed. Stop her. The commander and his remaining soldiers threw themselves into its path. They knew they couldn't win. They only had to buy seconds. One by one they fell. Not retreating. Not begging. Holding the line. Daniel finally moved. He looked at the monster wearing his face. Then at me. Then at the gate. For the first time in his life, he made a choice that wasn't about himself. He ran past me. He snatched the burning ticket from my hand. Maya. I grabbed his arm. No. He smiled sadly. You said you wanted to leave with nothing. He looked at the ticket. I guess I should too. The copy shrieked. Its human skin split open. Hundreds of black arms burst from its back.
Its jaw tore down to its chest.
The entire mountain shook. Daniel laughed through his tears. $5 million. What a stupid way to die. Then he jumped. Straight through the stone arch. The darkness swallowed him instantly. The burning ticket vanished with him. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the mountain exploded with light. Not fire. Golden light. Every crack in the canyon blazed. The fake Daniel screamed as his body shattered into black dust. The smiling people outside the mountain all collapsed at once. The ink spreading across the sky reversed. Like water being pulled back into a bottle. The impossible darkness rushed into the gate. The stone arch cracked.
Collapsed.
And buried itself forever beneath thousands of tons of rock. When the dust settled, the silence felt real again. Birds sang. Wind moved through the pines. The pressure crushing my chest was gone. The old man was dying beneath a fallen pillar. He smiled when he saw the morning sky. We closed it. I knelt beside him. Was Daniel? The old man nodded once. The gate always takes its anchor. He closed his eyes. And this time, it stayed shut. 3 months later, the government called it a chemical disaster. Every video was confiscated. Every witness signed secrecy agreements. The official death toll listed only those whose bodies had been recovered. Daniel Lawson's name appeared among them. Cause of death, missing during emergency evacuation. No mention of a lottery ticket. No mention of a gate. No mention of smiling strangers. I returned alone to the southwestern mountains. I buried my grandmother's broken rosary beneath the old lightning-struck tree where she had carved it. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye. Nestled among the roots was a tiny green shoot, a sapling. On one slender branch hung 7 perfectly formed wooden beads. I smiled despite myself. The mountains had already chosen the next tree. Somewhere, years from now, another keeper would carve another rosary. And if the gate ever tried to open again,